And Russia says Ukraine has launched another drone strike on its soil, this time in the southwest of the country. The attack targeted a police building in a district of Bryansk region. No injuries have so far been reported. Arise chief correspondent John Cookson has been monitoring developments on war in Ukraine and joins us now live from London for more. Thank you for being here, John. What more can you tell us about this Russian missile strike on President Zelensky's hometown?
Hi there, great to be on Newsday. Well, this happened this morning. A couple of missiles slammed, one of them into a part of a university and the other into an apartment block. Now, the sources that I've cultivated during my visits to Ukraine tell me that at least 5 bodies have been found in the apartment block, including, sadly, a 10-year-old girl and her mother. 53 people are estimated as being injured in this attack, which came early this morning, not for the first time on Kryvyi. President Zelensky's hometown has been attacked before. There's no doubt, following Ukraine's drone attacks on Moscow over the weekend, it will be seen as a revenge for those attacks. Zelensky there saying in that clip that the war is gradually returning to Russian territory, and all what's going on at the moment is symbolic of this sort of low-level war that's going on between the two countries. Also news today, for example, of 100 missiles hitting Belgorod in just inside the Russian border, fired from Ukraine. Also, Ukraine missiles hitting part of the Donetsk territory, killing 2 people. So this day-to-day low-level war continuing as we head through the summer and into the winter period, ultimately, when most Western observers are thinking that this war is going to drag on, certainly through into the next year. The casualty figures overall are absolutely horrendous, it seems. Defense Minister Shoigu, the Russian Defense Minister, claiming that at least 20,000 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed in the last month during this new offensive being mounted by Ukraine. Overall, the Ukrainians claiming that the Russians have lost 250,000 soldiers since the war began. So no end in sight, and these attacks happening almost on a day-to-day basis, killing civilians, sadly.
Duly noted, John. Now, what is Ukraine trying to achieve with random drone attacks on the Russian capital?
It's saying to not only to Russia but the rest of the world that it can attack the Russian capital with impunity. It's very symbolic. The drone that struck at the weekend in a downtown Moscow hit a business building, no doubt only by an industrialist, perhaps supportive of. So it's very symbolic of these kind of attacks. And says that also that Ukraine can attack some 350 kilometers from its border, and to send a clear message to the Russian people that Ukraine will not back down. So we'll no doubt see more attacks like this on the Russian capital. This the 4th so far.
All right then, John, can you tell me, have there been any details released about the African peace proposals floated at the recent summit in St. Petersburg?
Yeah, the summit concluded over the weekend, attended by 17 African countries. Vice President Shatima of Nigeria, representing Nigeria, there. The summit very much led by South Africa, Egypt, and countries like Mali and Central African Republic. They went with 2 missions to try to persuade President Putin to end the war and try to find some resolution to the Black Sea grain deal, which is currently suspended. As for the African proposals for peace, the details are very, very sketchy indeed, but we think They include the following: a pullback of Russian troops from Ukrainian territory. Where and how many, we don't know. The removal of Russian tactical nuclear weapons from Belarus, which is a country, of course, north of Ukraine. An easing of sanctions against Russia, and a suspension of the arrest warrant that was issued by the International Criminal Court earlier this year against President Putin. Those are the sparse details that we know, and it's waiting to sort of sink in on both sides, Moscow and Kiev, what it all means and whether either side is prepared to consider any of these peace proposals.
Well, thank you, John. Now, what are you actually learning about a possible peace summit in Saudi Arabia?
Very interesting. Came out of the blue almost the weekend. News that Saudi Arabia is as soon as possibly next weekend hosting a peace summit on behalf of Ukraine. This positioning the de facto ruler of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, as an international peacemaker, if you like, trying to improve his image in the rest of the world and positioning Saudi Arabia as a leading world power. Western nations have been invited, but also countries like China, Mexico, Argentina, India, South Africa. And the whole purpose is to try to get some backing from Western countries and also the so-called BRICS, developing nations, for a peace deal on Ukraine's behalf. Now, it's being held in Jeddah. We don't know too much more than that. I'm sure details will emerge over the coming days. But crucially, Russia has not been invited. So my big question here is, if Russia is not going to be at the table, what is the purpose of all of this? Is it perhaps to get a general consensus building up through the rest of the world that might drive Putin to the negotiating table? Who knows? But I would imagine that if Russia is not there, the other player in this bitter conflict, it's going to be little more than a talking shop.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Arise Chief Correspondent John Cookson, for your analysis on this current issue.